now?
Mm-hmm.
So, hi guys, I see people joining us on Facebook. Doreen is just fixing something real quick and then we can get started here. But welcome, welcome. Give us some likes on this video. I was just outside. My hands are frozen. The kids were, let's see, but we are almost there. We're getting started. Hi, Joanne. How are you doing, Chikazi? Thank you for joining us. It's been a busy week. Tell you what, busy week. But let me see. Somebody just asked me for the link. Let me quickly here see if I can get it and share it. Okay, here it is. Okay. Did you get it, Doreen?
Yeah, I got it. I have just shared it.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right, awesome. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We have Doreen in studio. Yay! Finally, I know she's so busy and she's always like up and down, traveling different countries. But I'm so glad she was able to spare some time to be with us today. So, I feel it's going to be a very powerful live and very inspiring for so many people out there. Like I said before, so many of us have at least a family member, a friend, a neighbor that has lived with or is has lived with, let's say, HIV and AIDS or any other diseases that you might have. And I feel like this will be very empowering. So I'm so grateful that actually Doreen could spare some time to share her story and motivate and inspire other people. So, Doreen, without further ado, could you introduce yourself? And again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's really been a hectic month on my hand. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, here we are today. So we thank God. They say God does things in His own time. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this is
Mm-hmm.
God's time, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
my name is Doreen Moracha. I am a young woman living with HIV. I have lived with HIV since I was born. I am the founder of an initiative called I Am a Beautiful Story, which ideally aims at giving people living with HIV like me or any other chronic illness the hope that we are beyond our diagnosis. We are beautiful stories. We are greater than our diagnosis. And we're basically normal human beings. Also, the normal aspect, because a lot of people think that the minute you start taking treatment or you're diagnosed, then you're not normal. But we are normal. We are people. We do things that every person does every time. So yeah, that is me, and I use social media as a tool for advocacy and for normalizing the HIV conversation.
Absolutely, yes. I've been following your stories. I'm like, every day I see what you're doing, which country you're traveling to, which
Mhm.
people you're meeting with and empowering. So thank you so much. And I applaud your courage to come out and, say, hey, we're beautiful. And just because you have this with on you or with you
Mhm.
does not mean it's the end of the world. So
Yes.
it's spreading positivity, and we are so grateful for people like you that come out and share your stories.
Mhm.
Now, so take us through the story. So you were born with HIV, Doreen.
Yeah.
Are your parents still alive, if I
Yeah.
may
Both my
ask?
both my parents are still alive.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So were your parents infected as well? Or how were you born with HIV, for example, if somebody's out there and they're wondering?
So I was born with HIV 29 years ago. I am the third born in a family of, we would have been five, but one of us passed on. So now we're only four. My parents don't have the same HIV status. So my mom is HIV positive, my dad is HIV negative.
Oh my
And
goodness. Huh.
so they are called, we are moving away from calling them a discordant couple because
Yeah.
they say that discordancy in English does not have the right meaning. It's a little bit stigmatizing. So
Yes.
we are moving away from saying they don't have the same HIV status. So uh, my late brother and I were the only ones born with HIV. And when I was born personally, my parents did not know that I have HIV. So it took them 8 years before they could actually know that I was HIV positive. And sometimes I see when I share my story and people tell me, but how did you live for 8 years? Because, and nobody knew. The sad thing is, when HIV first came, the diagnostics we have now are all new. That shows the journey has been long. People
Yes.
never knew. Pregnant women were not getting tested for HIV. Uh, People did not know that they should even test children for HIV.
Yes, I
So
agree.
it was not a big deal that time. And so, yes, I was a sickly child, but the last thing on my parents' mind was she's HIV positive. You see, like that was the very last thing. So
Yes.
when I was 8 years old, in fact, on my eighth birthday, I got sick. I had an infection called herpes zoster. So I have a scar, and
Yeah.
that scar actually is a result of herpes zoster. So I was taken to hospital, and the doctors looked at me. And herpes zoster is an opportunistic infection that
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
affects, or rather, it's a red flag for people living with HIV.
Okay, so it's
So
like one of the symptoms, maybe you could. Okay.
sort of, because ideally HIV does not have independent symptoms on its own, but
Yes.
when you see a person with specific opportunistic infections, then you know that they probably might have HIV.
Now, do the
So
symptoms only show like on your face, or they could show in different parts, like
you
yours
you you no, you can get herpes zoster anywhere.
anywhere? Okay,
It just decides where it wants, and mine decided
to
it
be on
wants.
your face.
Yeah. So the doctors asked my parents if they could test me for HIV, and of course my parents said, yeah, of course, just as long as we find out what is wrong with her. So I was tested, and of course the test came back positive, and
Mm-hmm.
now my parents were shocked because I am
Yes.
8 years old. Where am I getting HIV from? So the doctors
Yeah.
told them probably she was born with it. Does any of you know the HIV status? So that time, HIV, before traveling out of the country, or rather going anywhere, you had to be tested for HIV. So my father had already tested for HIV because he was traveling out.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother had never been tested. So now she was told, here is the letter. In fact, the testing those days were not like now, where right now you just walk into a facility or you test from home. You had to be written a whole recommendation letter so that you can go to a clinic that can actually test you. So
Mm-hmm.
she
Mm-hmm.
walked with that letter for so long. It was just in her bag, and she was not ready. You know, the thing of being told that your child is HIV positive and you also have to test, it's not something that you prepare. You wake up in the morning and you know
No,
this is
no,
going to happen
you
today.
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
It's a lot of work. So she went to get tested, and then like very many weeks later, I was still in hospital because I was admitted for almost 1 month. So she went, got tested, and while I was in hospital, she found out she was HIV positive. So then there's some nuns who used to come to the hospital. So the thing is, I was actually put in a ward that had chronic patients. So I was not put like in the normal children's ward. So I was in a ward for chronic illnesses, because that was the category they felt I
That they felt
was.
like you should be in. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So this nuns, I think they were told that we have a case. She's HIV positive,
And this is
and
in Nairobi, Kenya, if I may
this
ask,
is in
Doreen.
Kenyatta National Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah. So the nuns came around and they talked to my parents, and they told because they were running a children's home called Nyumbani Children's Home. So
Mm-hmm.
they told my parents they could actually take me in, because that time Nyumbani was only dealing with children living with HIV only. I don't know whether as years have gone by, they have incorporated other children, but their major focus was always orphaned and vulnerable children. So we came back, they talked to my parents and asked them if I could go to the home and stay there because it's easier. As much as there was no treatment, it will be easier because there is like support, there are immune booster, such kind of things to just keep you going, because we did not know when like the antiretrovirals will come. We didn't know anything. It was just blurry. Like, have you ever been handed a diagnosis and there is
Yeah, like right
there's
there,
no solution? So
yeah.
just live your life. Whatever happens. Like, there's no other solution we can give you. So my parents refused to take me to the children's home because they said the doctors had actually told them, we can't promise you she's going to live because there is no treatment. So without treatment, we can't make promises. So the best thing we can tell you is take her home, love her unconditionally, and just whatever happens. But you can be bringing her in for checkups from time to time in case she's unwell and all that. So when the nuns, however, agreed to support me from outside. So some days I would go to the children's home, like spend the whole day, play with the other kids, and now come back home. You see, when I was being taken there, in my head, it had not hit me. Nobody had told me that I have HIV. So
They had not even told you. Yes. Okay.
Nobody had told me yet. So when I asked my parents what is happening, they were like, you have a skin condition, or rather you have skin cancer, and it's going to get better when you reach the age of 12. So my skin had issues. Apart from the herpes zoster, my skin just had rashes. It looked funny. So in my head, I was like, I can't wait to have normal skin like the other kids so that we can all be the same. So my head was like, once I reach 12, all these problems are just going to go away. And then when now my parents kept taking me to Nyumbani back and forth, because every other time I got an opportunistic infection, I had to go to hospital. So in 2005, or rather in 2004, ARVs were officially made available.
That was in 2004.
Yes. And now we started them in 2005, because before that, the ARVs that were there were expensive. And now that was the time when the world decided to give us free ARVs. So Kenya started the program in 2004. So in 2005, my mom and I started treatment, and we just, that was also the time that she disclosed to me, or rather she took me to hospital, and with the help of the healthcare provider, I was told I am living with HIV. So the thing is, I did not see it as a big deal. It did not hit me like this is life-changing, this is forever. As in, it did not hit me like that.
Yeah.
In my head, I was just told, I was just thinking, this is just another opportunity to be traveling every month, to be eating nice food. That means like I will be bought for chipo and kuku. As in, it made me happy. And also before that, we used to take an antibiotic called Septrin only. So now I was getting all these new ARVs that looked very colorful, very small, because Septrin is one very big tablet. So for a child, it's very unfriendly, and you really don't like it. So when I was given the ARVs and I saw how colorful and they had nice shapes, I was so happy. I was like, wow, I want this, So, but there were many. There were like 8 tablets, I think.
A day that you had to take.
Yes. So you take 4 in the morning, 4 in the evening. So after that, I now started seeing the reality, because my doctor told me nobody should know that I have HIV.
So when did they actually tell you? Like at what age?
At 13.
That you actually have HIV? Like
at 13.
At 13.
Yeah. So
did you even know what HIV and AIDS meant at 13?
I didn't, like, it didn't hit me that it's this lifelong illness, as that was not the plan. I in my head I was like, okay, it will go away at some point. So to me, it did not seem like the heavy lifelong health condition. It seemed like an opportunity to eat chips and chicken, get new drugs, It's just, and they were telling
just
me,
be a normal child. Yes.
Just being a normal child. Like, to me, it didn't hit me. The way when you're diagnosed as an adult, it hits you like, oh my God, I have this thing. So to
Yeah.
me, it did not hit me like that the first time. I was like, okay, fine, let's keep doing this. So when now the following year I was supposed to go to Form 1. And that is where the problem started, because now my mom will not let me go to a boarding school. She told me, if you go to boarding school, the state of boarding schools in Kenya is not good. The food is not good. And also you have just started treatment. So like I was just a few months into treatment, because I started my medication around September. So it had not even kicked in fully into my system. So she told me, you can go to a boarding school. You have to wait and go to a day school for now, and then we can see what happens. So I started going to a day school, and my life was okay. When I'm not in school and I'm supposed to go for my appointments, I just tell the teacher, tomorrow I'm not coming in, I have a clinic day. And they were like, okay, fine. So the teachers did not know that I had HIV. They were just told that I have a health condition and it requires monthly checkups. And they were like, fine, as long as she says, she communicates earlier. So later on, now I started seeing that HIV was not this nice thing. That was, I
How
think,
did that start? Yes.
so when I was going to Form 3, we had the post-election violence. And now I had to change schools, because where we used to live was that it was a border town. So it was a volatile area. So we had to relocate. So when we relocated, where we came to in Machakos, there were no day schools that were near. There were day schools, yes, but they were so far away. And the nearest school was a boarding school. So my mom told me, I think we need to opt for this. So we opted for the boarding school. And because it was near the road, it was accessible. And she was like, yeah, here I can always pop in anytime and just see you. So the thing is, we will still not tell the school management that I had HIV. So I had to take the medication in secrecy.
In secrecy.
Yes, because the school policy was, if you have any health condition, you tell the matron, they keep the medication for you, and then you basically go to the matron's house every evening, or rather every morning, depending with the time you're taking your medication. So the thing is, I have been told by my doctor, never tell anyone you have HIV. And then the school has this policy. So I have to find a way of sneaking the medication into school and taking it in secrecy, because I don't want anybody to know. So now even the monthly visits to the hospital had to stop. So now I had to basically go to hospital during my school holidays only.
Wow.
So it now became this inconveniencing thing. And then at school, the thing is, boarding schools don't have privacy. So people will pass and see these huge bottles in your box, and they're like, so what are these for? And they're like, those are like for my heart condition. And then they tell you, now people are asking you, how does your heart feel? And you have never experienced a heart condition. You don't know how people with a heart condition feel. But you have to keep the narrative going, because these people need answers. And because it's high school, the last thing you need is for teenagers to find out that you are living with HIV.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I had to lie to them, because my parents had told me, anybody who asks you, tell them you have a heart condition, just in case. But for now, we can always try and find a way of hiding the medication. So we continued like that. We hid the medication for a while. And in Form 4, now that is when my mom came and told the principal, because now we had gotten a new principal, and told the new principal, by the way, Doreen is living with HIV. And we would like for you to make her life a little bit easier, because with the diet and everything going on in school, and now she's a candidate, we really want her to at least have an easier time. So she understood, and she was like, okay, why have you people never told anyone? And we're like, how do we tell people about the most stigmatized health condition in the world? How do you just tell them you have HIV? It does not work like that. And because the first stigma my mom and I rather received, were from close family members, in that our personally, my utensils used to be disinfected. My
Yeah.
clothes were disinfected and actually washed separately. So it made me even stop visiting relatives, because I realized that they will never see me beyond my condition. They will always look at me and they're like, maybe I brought HIV to their house. So I was like,
Wow.
I told my mom, I am never send me to any of your relatives. I don't want to go there because they don't see me like a normal child. And so I stopped going there. So you see, telling other people when the stigma came from home, it's
Yeah.
always going to be very hard.
Yeah.
So she was just like, okay, fine. So I finished Form 4. I came back home. And now there was even no stigma in high school because nobody knew.
Yes,
Now, the
exactly.
reality is very harsh. The world is a harsh place. And I can say that because it is a harsh place. And it has a lot of unkind people and people who don't look at people living with HIV as normal human beings. And
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
always makes people living with HIV look at themselves as lesser people, because the society has viewed us like that. So the first time, now I'd finished Form 4, I want to go to college, and then I go to my uncle because I wanted to do radio. And I tell him I want to do mass communication and I want to
Mm-hmm.
do radio, and I just basically want your advice, because he was a lecturer and he understood the whole how to go about it, and because he was actually in the particular industry. He told me, no, you cannot be in radio. I was like, why? It's just radio. I am qualified. It's not that I don't have the grades. I have the grades. So what is the
Yeah.
problem? He told me because people will find out about your status. And when people find out about your status, they will stigmatize you, because now you will be known by people who don't even need to know you're HIV positive. So I felt like HIV was limiting me at
Oh,
this point.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I went back home. I told my mom, okay, now let me do cabin crew, because it was also always on the list. So I said, let me do cabin crew. So I went, she told me, okay, fine, go and find a college. So I went to a college, one of the very prestigious colleges, by the way. So
Mm-hmm.
that lady, the minute I walked in and I told her, here are my grades, I want to do cabin crew, the air hostess, what. She's like, I would really love for you to do it because you have the height, you have the grades, like you're qualified for this. You are half qualified. But now you have one problem. You have a scar on your face. And for you to start to get into an air hostess class, you must first go through an interview that like
Yeah, like
evaluates
physical.
your
Yeah.
physical. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they will see a visible scar. We don't want that. They will actually just reject you. So the best I can give you is you do some ground course. That is the best.
Oh my
I
God.
was devastated. I was like, what is happening? Like, why is this HIV thing? Because the scar, I got it because of HIV. So it's like, why is this HIV thing now limiting me? Because it is basically a limitation at this
And
point.
yeah, everywhere. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I went home and I was so sad. And now I was very angry. And now I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be HIV negative. I did not want to be HIV positive anymore, because I felt this is not what I signed up for. This was not part of the deal. So as I don't know whether it is the universe or it is just sometimes the devil just plays jokes on you. I don't know. Uh, I was watching TV, like the primetime news, and then this man from Tanzania claims he's a herbalist and he can cure every disease. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, this is what I am talking about. So I was sold into the narrative that he had a cure. And I even convinced my mom. I was a
Yeah.
very famous, I don't know whether you know the story, he's a very famous Tanzanian herbalist called Babu Loliondo. And he trended
Mm.
a lot on mainstream media. And the number of people going there was extreme. The queue was long, as in people wanted to be free of whatever disease they had. So my mom and I, we went to Tanzania. We reached there. So it's just like 1 cup of some herbal medication. I don't know what herbs and roots he had boiled, but
Mm-hmm.
so we went there and he sends us, he calls us because we reached there in the evening. And then he calls us in the morning and is like, you've come here, you all have different health conditions. And I want to tell you, I do not have a cure, but I do have something that can help you. And also you have faith. So we had faith and we had something that looked like a cure. So we went for it. We paid our 100 shillings, got our medication, and came back home. So when we came back home, we believed that we were cured. We believed that we were healed. We believed that we are now HIV free and we can stop with the medication. So we stopped. But at least my mom
you
just
stopped the medication.
We stopped the medication. So my mom at least stopped for 3 months, then went to confirm and got tested. And when she got tested...
What's the herbalist's name again, Doreen?
He was called Babu Aloliondo. He passed on, I think, a month ago.
Okay, so
month or 2 months ago, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Please, we'll ask EBM. Yeah.
So I go to so Babu is like no. Now we've come back from Babu. My mom has gone to get tested to confirm, and then she even told the counselor, "Don't cancel me. I don't want counseling. I just want the test." So she got tested, and it's positive. It's a very strong positive actually, because she has not even been on treatment. So she comes back home and tells me, this is hard, but we have to go back to those treatments that we had stopped because we kind of still are HIV positive. And I was in denial. I told her I am not going back to that treatment. I am HIV free. I don't want that treatment. So she just told me, but your life literally depends on this treatment.
Yeah.
So I refused to go. I refused to go back to treatment. We used to go to hospital, pick the drugs, bring them back home, just store them. So there's a test that we always do for people living with HIV after every 6 months. It's called the viral load test. So the viral load test, I was tested my viral load. So when I went back to the hospital, the doctors started calling each other. So things are bad when you see doctors calling each other. You know that things are extremely on the bad side.
Yeah.
So they started consulting and asking themselves what is happening. I came from a star patient to the poorest performing patient in that facility. They even wondered what was happening. So they asked me, Doreen, have you been taking your medication? I was like, yes. Why would I stop taking it? I know how important these drugs are. So they told me the thing is, your viral load is at 70,000 copies. A normal viral load is supposed to be below 50 copies when you're taking your medication. In fact, it's supposed to be 0 when you're taking a medication and you are basically everything is going well. It's supposed to be 0. So 50 is you are doing okay. You are well and everything is fine. But if you're a star patient, it's 0. So now I have 70,000. So the doctors tell me, you have not been taking this treatment. I tell them I have. In fact, it is you people who are confused. So they tell me then, we have a problem. The problem is your viral load is high. And if it continues like this, then we will have to take you to the next treatment line. And if not, then we will just figure out that maybe you are having treatment resistance because we don't understand what is happening. So from there, I knew that if they take me to the second line treatment, then it will not really work for me because I'm not even on treatment at all and I don't want it. So I stopped going to hospital altogether. So I just continued winging it. They talked to me, they counseled me, they sent a social worker, but none of those things worked. And it's something that I always tell people, that when you have a patient struggling with acceptance and adherence, no matter who talks to them, unless the person themselves just reaches that point and tells themselves, I want to do this thing called life, trust me, it doesn't matter who talks to them. They just don't want. There is that point where the patient does not want and you can't do anything about it. So that was me as a patient. I was like, let them sending a social worker from Kericho to Nairobi to come and talk to me, and still I am not going back to treatment, shows that I just don't want as a patient. And as much as we sometimes say, no, these people need counseling and all that, sometimes the patient just doesn't want, because sometimes the solution also lies with the same person who has the problem. That is the
That's
saddest
right.
reality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we met, so the social worker kept coming. I kept telling her I will think about it. And so finally one night I got pneumonia. I basically went to bed very well and then woke up very sick at like 2 a.m. And my mom was now worried, what is happening? What are we going to do? And then I was like, take me to hospital. So she wanted to take me to a private hospital, and then she was like, you know, when your HIV has advanced that high, sometimes so you need more specialized care. So she took me to Machakos level 5. I was tested, my viral load again. Now it was at 120,000 copies.
Yeah, is
Uh,
that bad?
yes, it was that bad. So now I had pneumonia, I had herpes zoster, I had cold sores. It was bad. Like I went from bad to worse very quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
the doctor
Mm-hmm.
just looked at me and he was like, why don't you want to take your treatment? And he had an attitude. I was like, if I was not in pain, this man. So it's just there, like, why don't you want to take your treatment? Didn't they tell you that taking your treatment is for life?
Mm-hmm.
But you see, doctors don't understand that for life is long. I have been on ARVs for 16 years and it's still not for life.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, it is
Yeah.
still not the rest of my life. So it is not something you just tell people, take your medication for the rest of your life. It's not that simple. It's easier said than done, because when we go back to our homes, when we are back to our realities, then we have to hide our treatment, then we have to struggle with taking the treatment. It's too much work on our end. So the doctor, I just looked at him because I was in pain and I couldn't talk back to him. So he gave me treatment, very many antibiotics, including the ARVs. So now I had this whole pill burden on me just because I had stopped taking my treatment earlier on. So I went back to treatment, not because I wanted to, majorly
Yeah.
because I was just in pain.
Yeah.
So I took the treatment,
So
I
what
got
kind
back.
of pain this whole time, Doreen? What kind
Mhm.
of pain are you usually experiencing? Like fever? Is it like, do you get fevers? Like, how
Mhm.
is your whole body like?
Your whole body aches. You don't want to be in your body at that point because it's aching. My mouth is swollen, my tongue has sores, my face has herpes zoster. I am feeling, it's very hot, but I am feeling very cold, as in nothing in my body is comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I am, imagine watching other people eat chicken and you can't even pass anything through your mouth because your mouth is swollen, you have sores, and all you can eat are just beverages, just so that the medication cannot go down. I will drink porridge with a straw because I did not have the, I could not eat normal solid foods. My
Now
mom had
that
to buy
that
a
was,
blender.
yeah, Doreen. That
Mhm.
was when you had stopped taking medications, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, but like after that, so other than, like when you're back on your medications and everything is going on, what do you feel every day in your body? How is it like for
Nothing.
you? Nothing. You feel
Nothing,
normal.
nothing. If you're taking your medication, you're normal. When I told you we are normal, we are normal. Nothing is
Hmm.
wrong with us when we are
Okay.
taking our medication. The problem starts when you stop the medication, because a lot of people stop medication thinking they might die tomorrow. The problem is with HIV, it starts progressing and it's slow. And even if you want to die, it's a very slow, painful death. You don't even want it because you don't even like your body anymore. So it's not something that just kills you like snap and you're dead. No, it takes time because HIV is a smart virus. And when you're not on treatment, it's mutating, it's taking its time just to destroy your immune system. And before you know it, you're out.
Okay.
But when you're
Now
taking your treatment, normally your body is just okay. You are
it's
fine.
just okay. You're
Yeah.
fine. Okay. Um, are there things? Okay, so let's go back a little bit, Doreen. When your
Mhm.
parents, so you told us, your mom, after like after they diagnosed you and they found that you were HIV positive, your mom, so then your parents were forced to also do a test,
Yeah.
like, because they were like, how did this child, have HIV? So
Mm-hmm.
and then your mom tested positive and your dad was negative.
Yeah.
How did that affect your family? Like your parents' relationship, for example. How was that for you as a family?
Well, for me, my dad, because he was traveling out of the country, was,
Yeah.
of course, shocked. It's not something that
Yeah.
you expect, first
Mm-hmm,
of all.
mm-hmm.
And also, it's HIV we are talking about. It's people have perceptions about HIV, and you don't know whether you should stay with your partner at that point, leave them. It's a roller coaster of emotions. So my dad literally went and like ghosted us for a while. Like he was just quiet because I sometimes I understand where he's coming from, because he didn't know. This is information you find out like 3 days before you travel
Like chop
out.
chop. It's like
Exactly. So it's not something that you just say, oh, okay, fine, let's move on. No, it's a lifelong health condition, and grasping that aspect is always takes time. And that is what I tell people: take time, because the thing is, with the time, you learn to accept.
yeah.
But if you start struggling that you want to accept everything immediately, it doesn't work like that. Give yourself
Mhm.
time. So my dad was quiet for a while. My mom went into alcoholism because she could not believe that she had a child who was about to die, and she was about to die, and there was also another child who was about to die. So those are like, it was too much. So she will just drink like every day. And when my
Mhm.
brother died, it even became worse.
So your brother, was that the younger sibling,
Y-
or was
Yeah, the younger sibling.
the younger sibling, and that was the last child?
That was the second last child. We have a last one.
So and the last one is negative.
Yeah, the last one is negative.
What do the doctors say about that?
No, women living with HIV are able to give birth to negative children as long
Okay,
as
so
they're on
okay.
treatment. Yeah,
As long as they're on treatment. Okay,
yeah.
that's actually very good to know for
The
people. Yeah.
problem with now, before, it's because my mom was not diagnosed and she was not on treatment, so she did not know. She was just giving birth to children just like that, because that time, and that time when we were born, women living with HIV were not being tested for HIV, or rather, pregnant mothers were not being tested for HIV.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So right now it's mandatory. You have to test for HIV while you're pregnant, during your pregnancy, and also when you give birth. Now there are those processes that you have to follow the child to be put on
To be,
prophylaxis
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and all that. Yeah.
Okay. I was saying there's a video going around of a guy saying, I mean, I could see like some people lose it, like this information
Yeah.
is really a big information. It's just knowing that you're going to be, I mean, there's too much around it. So I can see why a person would be like Doreen was just saying, at some point, she was like, I'm not taking this medication anymore. I'm like done with it. So
Mhm.
it's too much. And you've lived in this environment where you have to hide a lot.
Yeah.
Like in school, you're not sure how your kids would, like fellow students would think of you, would treat
Mhm.
you, how they would look at you. Like I'm thinking they might not even want you to share their basins, like in boarding
Yeah.
schools,
Mhm.
in their cups or their spoon. Like in boarding school, we share stuff like
Yeah.
clothes, whatever.
Mm.
So all this is, Doreen, you had to find a way to hide who you are, what you
Yeah.
have.
Mhm.
How do you think this affected you a lot in the long run?
Yes, it did, because now I did not know what people will feel if I tell them I have HIV, or if even if they find out that I have HIV, because it's not something that we have normalized to talk about in society. It's something that we always say, let it be a secret. And because we have kept it as this big secret, it's so hard to tell people, and for it to be normal, for this conversation to be normal. And we're like, it's not like chatting about food. It is the
Mhm,
HIV, and people
mhm.
have perceptions about HIV. That is only the only sad part about living with HIV is the fact that people have perceptions about HIV. So like 2 years after I had stopped taking my medication, I was doing my internship. at the Teacher Service Commission. And then this lady, who was my boss then, sent us to the field to test people for HIV. So we had this whole week-long testing and counseling going on in the school. But for 3 days, we did not see the students. As in, this is a place where it's a weekday. Students are coming in, they're not on holiday.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing them. So we decided when our boss came to the field, she was like, why not just go to their classes? Because ideally, they know that there is a VCT going on and they don't want to come here because it's HIV.
Yeah.
It's literally HIV. And nobody wants to see you. Nobody wants to be seen coming from the testing place. And nobody wants to be seen going there. So there is always that thing. So my my boss was like, no, just go to their classes, tell them. And she's like, you can even tell them your story. I'm like,
how old were you then? How old were you that time?
I was 22.
You're 22.
Yeah. So I'm like, no. We are not doing my story, but I will try. So we went to the classes one afternoon. They were like on break. And so we were telling them, come get tested. We have a free HIV and testing services going on in the school. And they're like, no, me, I'm good. I'm negative, but I'm good. So you tell them, have you ever tested? No, I have not tested, but I know that I am good. So you see, this kind of thing is, this person already perceives that if they have not had sex with anybody, they cannot be HIV positive.
They cannot
or
be
if
HIV
they have not had
positive.
sex recently, why do they even have to test? So most of them had that fear, but we tried to convince them. A few of them came. We tested quite a number, and we went back to the office. So at the office was when now my boss brought up the issue of, why not open up before you go for this site visits, just open up to the students, tell them, because we used to do a lot of HIV testing and services, a lot in most of the universities. So I was like, wow, she wants me to tell people that I have HIV. And how are these people going to see me? As in, it's not
and
something.
These are students. These are high school students, you know.
Exactly. So I was like, no. And then she told me, you can write your story, bring it to me. Let me see what I can do so that when I'm writing the next proposal, we know that we have you as a champion. I was like, I don't think I'm ready to be a champion. I don't think I'm ready to champion anything at all. So one time I tried writing the story. I wrote the story like 2 or 3 times, and then I was like, no. I am not doing this. This is not working. So I stopped writing the story. Then one afternoon, I was just going through an article, and then I saw this lady. She was doing a lot of change in Kibra. She was inspiring young women in Kibra. And I was like, wow, I can be this lady. What if I just send it to the editor? So at the back of my mind, when I was writing that email to the editor, my mind was not at the point where I will get a response. It was like when you vent to someone anonymously, they don't know you, you don't know them, you don't expect a response. So when I reached home, I get a reply. And she's like, hi, Doreen, I just saw your email and I love your story. I want to share it. Now I was shocked. Now I did not know. I did not know how to process this information because my mind was not ready to tell the world that I have HIV. It was not. So I called my mom first because my mom, after she had gone into a coma, she had really become extremely sick, got TB, and went into a coma for a while, and now came out, and she was now this person who was living her life beyond her diagnosis, and then she left me behind. So now I called her and told her, hey, I kind of sent an email to this editor and she wants us to do a story. And she's like, yeah, fine, go ahead, do the story. And I'm like, okay. So I wrote to the editor. I told her, yeah, I would like us to do the story. It will really be nice. So it was supposed to be on print media, and then later on they said, no, we're just going to put it on digital media. And I was like, wow, yay, nobody's going to read it, because that time digital media was not this big the way it is right now. So it was not this big, and I was like, as long as nobody reads it, I'm good. Then I left my email at the very end of the story. So I got 1,000 emails that day. Probably it's
Wow.
1,000 plus, because I never replied to all of them. There were so many,
Wow.
so overwhelming. Then they shared it to their Facebook page. And now people who never knew that I was HIV positive now were tagging me and saying,
Now we're
what
all.
is wrong with media houses? How can they do? Please sue them. So now I got scared. I deactivated my Facebook account. And I was not really social on, like, vocal on the
Yeah.
other social media platforms, so nobody knew me there. So I was
Yeah.
like, yo, I am out. So I deactivated my Facebook account for like 2 days, then came back and still now got the tags. Like, these
Yeah.
people, they are defaming your name, you know? Then
Mm.
I read most of the emails, but one email really stood out for me, where this man told me that he had been taking ARVs from the boot of his car for 5 years. He had lived with HIV for 5 years, and every evening he will just drive to his parking. He always ensured that he had water in his car. So when he is leaving the office, he removes one pill, comes to the car. When he is parking, he basically takes his pill and gets into the house. And that time we used to take this pill that was really, it used to give us like nightmares. It, like, anytime we take it, that is why it was always written, take at night. So it
Mm.
was such an overwhelming drug. And this man is doing this for 5 years in
In his
silence
car.
on his
Mm.
own. And he just gets into the house, and probably is just, of course he is tired, so he goes to bed and tells them, wake me up when, like, that. As much as I know that we don't really owe people to tell them what we are going through, but living with a lifelong health condition does require a little bit of psychosocial support. It
Mm-hmm.
requires
Mm-hmm.
psychosocial support. So this man was like, no, I've just been doing this because if I tell my wife, she's going to leave me.
Oh my gosh. So the wife did not know.
The wife did not know. That is why he was taking his ARVs in secrecy. So I asked myself, how many of these cases do we have in this country?
So many, probably.
What is going on? As in, how are people living like this? And then I said, I just started now from there, living openly with HIV. I started sharing in Facebook groups. I started now media. People started saying, we want to do your story. We want you to narrate how you're living positively. And that has been 6 years now.
Yeah.
And I have
Amazing.
told the story, and it
Amazing
has been
work.
amazing, and it has impacted people's lives. And it always is, it gives me satisfaction when somebody comes and tells me, Doreen, I love the fact that through you, I have gotten to accept my HIV status. Because I tell people,
Absolutely. Yeah.
acceptance is not a one-day job. It
It's
is,
huge.
even
Yeah.
me right now, I can't say that I have fully accepted my HIV status, because there is no point called acceptance. It is something you do every day. When you wake up in the morning, you accept, I'm HIV positive. I am going to take my drugs today. And then you do that again tomorrow and the day after and the day after. But there is no one point where it will always be okay to be HIV positive.
No. No.
The,
No.
it, it,
No.
it, there is no that point. And I think people have that in mind, that there is a point you reach and you're okay with your status. You don't. There is nothing like that, because there are times you wish, what if I was HIV negative? There are
Right.
times an opportunity passes you just because you're HIV positive. So you will definitely wish that if I was negative, that would not have passed me. There's times you get rejected by people who maybe you have a crush on,
Mm-hmm.
you like them, they express that they like you too. And then when you tell them you have HIV, they run away or they leave you by the street. You see?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there is never going to be that place where you reach and say, I am okay with being HIV positive.
Mm-hmm.
But there will always be an acceptance of the daily part where you wake up, you accept, you take your drugs, you do life that day. And then tomorrow, you do it again until
Mm-hmm.
it's a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
maybe we should start viewing it from that way, because
Yeah.
I get a lot of messages of people telling me, I was diagnosed into 2020. I have not yet moved on. You can't.
You
It
can't.
lives,
Yeah.
the virus lives in you. You can't move away. It's not an ex-lover that you are leaving behind and saying, I will block them everywhere. No, it's
Yeah.
a health condition. It's in your blood. You live with it every day. So what you have to do is cope with it. So the coping part is where a lot of us struggle. I
Mm-hmm.
struggled. I stopped taking my treatment, and it's not easy, but it's doable.
Now, are there facilities like when you go for checkups and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so a little bit like why I really, really liked like everything that you're doing, and I followed your story like
Mm-hmm.
every day. Like I make sure I was like, you know what, I have to reach out to Doreen.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in my senior six vacation, like high school, senior six
Yeah.
vacation, I started working at an HIV and AIDS hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I was young. I mean, I was 18. And I remember my aunt had a restaurant in their canteen, like an eating place.
Yeah.
My husband right now, that time was a stranger to me, was working with HIV and AIDS. He was
Yeah.
one of the, like diplomats there or expatriates there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember going to the wards, like to the section where people are like have to spend nights, like sick people.
Mm-hmm.
And I went one night. So I would go, I was young, so I was doing like, like billing patients, like
Mm-hmm.
going there every evening to give them their bills of like how much they ate and their
Mm-hmm.
people, whatever, so that they can pay the bill, the food bills.
Yeah.
And I used to go through, it's a huge facility for those of you who are watching and you're from Uganda. It's in Mengo. It was called Joint Clinic Research Center.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the ward had like about 200 people in it. And I remember going bed to bed to bed, like seeing all the patients, and every patient in there had HIV and AIDS. And most of them were older. There were a few younger kids. And I remember seeing them. And like by the time I would leave the ward, going back home like every evening, my
Mm-hmm.
heart would be so heavy. I'd be so sad knowing that, okay. And then sometimes like the next day, the people that I had picked friendship with would be gone. Like I would ask the nurses, I'm like, what happened? They're like, oh, he passed away last night. I'm like, this is not like, why am I doing this? So
Yeah.
now I can't imagine you being that time me and knowing that you actually have that sickness, that
Mm-hmm.
you're living with it. What is like the one thing you would say to other younger, maybe like the youth who are living with HIV? What would you tell them? Like, how would they? How easily could they start appreciating their life or accepting? Like, how did you do it? Like, how can they do it?
So you see, as you have said, way back HIV was literally a death sentence,
Right.
and when you will go to hospital month after month, the doctor will be like, "Oh, you are back," and they
Mhm.
will be happy because
Mhm.
they don't know whether that is the last time they're going to see you. They just don't want to tell you that yet, but they will be so happy and treat you so nicely. And it never used to hit me that they will do that because they did not know whether that was the last time they were going to see me.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
because we didn't have treatment, you see, it's the same way you yesterday you saw somebody, you made friends with them, the following morning they're not there. Why? Because they're gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right nowadays when I see young people uh that trying to say they don't want to take drugs, trying to say I am tired of taking this medication, I feel like they are not being fair.
Mhm.
I am
Mhm.
sorry to say that, but I feel like they're not being fair because now we have treatment. People died waiting for that treatment. People used to drink urine because they were told if you drink your urine, it's going to kill the HIV in your blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
People used to. My mom actually was told to slaughter a goat and give us the inside, the stomach, and it should not be well washed so that we can drink that soup and it can kill the HIV virus. Like people were desperate to get something,
Yeah.
anything that could work, and
Mhm.
that is what happens with every pandemic. First we don't know what it is, then we figure it out, then as we are figuring it out because we don't really have what it takes, then we
Mhm.
start winging it, like if I drink this, am I going to be okay? If I drink that, you see? And that is what happened with HIV. So right now, if you get tested and you don't want to start treatment just because you don't want to start treatment, then you're just being
Mhm.
unfair, not only to yourself, but to the people around you. Remember that when you die, the same people, people always say, tell me, Doreen, people, what will people say? The thing is, people will always have something to say. If you don't drink treatment, they will judge you for not being on treatment. If you start treatment, they will have something to say. If you die because of HIV, they will ask, why are you dying because of HIV in 2021 when you can take treatment? So the thing is, people will always say something. So stop focusing on people. It's not their life, it's your life. And if you love yourself that much for you to keep going, for you to wake up every morning and keep staying alive, because if there are easier ways of death than waiting for HIV to kill you, because it takes longer, and there are easier ways. Which means
Right.
if you're taking longer, it's because you want to see what is happening with this thing called life. So why are you doing life like you have all the time in the world? You don't. Recently, something happened to me. And we were somewhere with a friend of mine, and we were going to spend the whole week together. And then we had planned to take lots of videos, lots of photos. We had our whole itinerary packed for our activity.
Of having a blast.
Yes. And then that was Saturday. On Sunday, she tested positive for COVID.
COVID.
As in, yesterday we were okay together, planning how we're going to spend the week together. And then the following day, she tested positive. And then I realized that time does not wait for anybody.
It doesn't.
Anything happens anytime. So start your treatment now. Live your life now. Stop this thing of thinking, what will people say? People have their own problems. Your own problems, they're just minding it as a way of gossip. So just take your treatment. It's not going to be an easy journey. It's not an easy journey. I won't even lie to you that taking ARVs every day for the rest of your life is easy. It's not. But you manage because you have the will to live. You have the strength to fight. You have the courage to keep going on. Those are the key things that keep you going. I don't have a user manual because I also took 23 years before I could accept that now, for real, I have HIV. And for real, I am going to take this medication for the rest of my life. So until you figure that out, until you end the self-stigma with you, because the sad part with self-stigma is nobody can help you end self-stigma. It's just you.
It's just you. You have to.
That is the saddest part, because I will come talk to you. Brenda will fly in, talk to you. The whole family, they will send social workers, but
no, it starts with you. It starts
you are
with
your own cure, literally. So accept yourself. Stop giving so much power to a very tiny virus. That is what I always tell people. Stop, because the more you keep focusing on, I am HIV positive, I am HIV positive, it sticks to your mind. It starts eating you like an animal, because your life does not stop. The same person you were before you tested is the same person you are after you get tested. There's no difference. You're the same person. So why are you feeling like less of a human being? The thing is, we might never end stigma. Because it's a mentality. It's a mentality. So we might never end it. But we can keep going. We can keep staying alive, because now we have better treatment. We have moved from a place where you used to take 8 pills a day to 1 pill a day. We are now moving into the injectable ARV. So why will you stop doing this thing called life just because of a health condition? There are worse health conditions, and some of those people are living life very beautifully.
Absolutely. Now, how did you for maybe couples who are out there, what happened between your mom and your dad? So are they back together now?
Yeah, they are back together. After my brother died, I think my father kind of realized that he needed to be there.
He needed to be there. Okay. And how did your mom, like you mentioned, your mom went into some depression, started drinking. How was it? How was she able to come back? Like to bounce back? What was that process like, even for you watching your mom go through that? Like, if there are any other people who might be watching now that they have their parents maybe who are living with HIV and AIDS, or maybe just HIV, and they're going through something like that, what could they do to help like their parents get back to normal?
Now, the sad thing is, with the parents, it's a little bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, most parents are even living with HIV and they don't even tell their children.
That's true.
And I do have children who tell me, my mom is positive, we see the treatment, but she does not want to tell us. Then I always tell them, just respect their
Their
wishes,
privacy. Yeah.
respect their privacy. Are they on treatment? Yes, that is what that matters. So just love and support them and be there for them, because sometimes the parents even feel bad that they don't want to tell they don't want to tell the children that I am HIV positive.
Mm-hmm.
It might not come off the way you want it to come off. So the best thing I say, if you have a parent who is living with HIV, just support them, be there for them, and that is it. If they don't want to talk to you about it, don't bring it up. One day they probably might. If they
Mm-hmm.
are already HIV positive and they're telling you, I'm living with HIV, support them. Don't focus so much. Also, sometimes we focus so much on the virus and we're like, how are you feeling? Like, are you okay? Okay. No, stop asking those kind of questions, because they make people feel uncomfortable, and probably why even people shy away. So seeing my mother come from depression, alcoholism, go to a near death experience, and then wake up, because there's one time when she was still in a coma, my sister went to visit her in hospital. And then we have a myth in my community that if you go to see a sick patient and the thermos you're carrying, like maybe the hot
For
water, the
tea, like,
porridging,
yeah, you should
yeah,
carry
if
some
that
food.
thermos breaks, that patient is going to die.
Oh, geez.
We have that myth. So my sister went to see my mom, and then the thermos broke on her way to the hospital. And she came back. She did not even reach the hospital. So she came
She
back
did.
crying. So I reached home and I found my sister crying. And I'm like, yo, she has died. So I asked my sister, what is wrong? And she's like, I was going to the hospital, the thermos broke. So I came back home. She is going to die. She is not going to make it. So it is a myth, but it didn't happen. But it is a myth. And you see, such kind of things just kept us anxious all the time,
Yeah.
because we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know if she was even going to wake up from that bed. But she woke up, she accepted her HIV status, and she, right now, if you see her, you would not even, she does not even talk about her HIV status, because she's just this lifeist, like she just lives her life the way she
Yeah.
wants. So
Yeah.
if you have a parent who is HIV positive, just let them be the parent. Don't, I know sometimes as children we feel we have the obligation to support them. Why can't they tell us? No. Are they taking their medication? Then respect their privacy to add that in. If you can support them with nutrition, if you can support them with any other thing, but if they don't have they're not free to tell you about their status, just relax.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
respect their privacy.
exactly.
Josephine has a question here. She
Mhm.
says, is it a myth or is it true that some people are immune to HIV? Now, that could
Well,
be your dad.
not really.
Not
For
really.
him,
Okay.
I kind of say it's more of lack than
Oh.
uh, than immune. However, there is like a small percentage, not really large, it's less than 1% of people in a
Mm-hmm.
particular place in the world that are a little bit, I don't know what is with their immune system, but they
Mm-hmm.
are immune to HIV. And it's less than 1% people in the
Yeah.
world. However, the other percentage, who is like 99.99%, we all can get HIV. But
Mm-hmm.
I know people ask, how come my parents are a discordant couple, and how can discordant couples live nowadays normally? So the thing is, with my
Yeah.
parents, that one I just call it luck. That has nothing to do with the science of today. That is just pure luck. But with the science of today, we have medication that is preventive, and we also have ARVs as a method of prevention. So in that, we have medication called PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis. This
Yeah.
is given to HIV negative individuals to take 7 days before they have sex, and for as long as they're in this relationship. So most discordant couples are always advised to use PrEP, because it's a long-term HIV prevention method.
Mm-hmm.
There's always also, when a positive person becomes undetectable, or rather they reach a place, the viral load I told you that was at
A
100,000,
hundred. So,
when,
yeah.
yeah, when it comes back to zero, uh, I am not able to transmit HIV to my partner. So that is how we use ARVs as a HIV prevention method. So nowadays it's easier. Nowadays it's better. Nowadays there's science, there's so much going on. and HIV is very preventable. So I always tell people, if you're negative, please stay negative, because there's so many prevention methods, and you can always stay negative as much as possible.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. All right. Let me see if there was like any other question. Liz says, keep sharing the positive vibes, Doreen. You are awesome.
Thank you, Liz.
I started watching you last year and I was so inspired. I wish many people were open to sharing this good information.
I wish so too.
Yeah, yeah. This is Africa says the stream. This is a great stream. Let's say,
Thank
I
you.
think, yes, Doreen, don't give power to the tiny virus. That's true. It's a
True.
tiny virus. You
True.
know, let's see. That less than 1% has said to be that they have a missing gene that keeps them from getting it. I've seen it over 20 years ago on one of the very first Americans has the missing gene. Yeah, that's true. I wish my husband was here. He would say more because
Yeah. It's a very small percentage actually worldwide, and they say mostly it's in Ireland that has very many people, and of course we only know of 2 people who have become HIV free, but they were not really like HIV free. It just happened because they received the what is it, this bone marrow transplant, and the
okay.
other one was a stem cell that treatment they were going through, and so the donor had kind of the gene, I think, and so the HIV cleared on its own. But so far there's no cure. Sometimes I really don't understand. I also asked that question, like 40 years later, 40 years, and we don't have a cure for HIV.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. Yeah, I ask my husband all the time. I'm like, what's happening? Because I mean, like, he's one of the HIV researchers. I'm
Yeah.
like, are we ever gonna get this? He's like, Brenda, right now they're trying. Like at least it's been advancing. Like you said,
Yeah.
there used to be these huge pills. I remember most of my family members, like I think one of my older brothers were among the first people to actually die of HIV. And we didn't even know that time. It was like in
Yeah.
1990, 93, 94. And so many people were getting sick. And these were like young people in like their 30s, I think, like my
Yeah.
older
Yeah.
brother. So people were getting too skinny and too skinny. I remember my brother getting too skinny. He was a doctor, but he and then like he became too skinny, and then people in the villages would start talking, saying it's probably witchcraft, this and the other. But I think he knew he had probably tested. I don't know if there were even testings that time, but I remember statistics had it that they were like, my brother was among the first people who died of HIV. And
Yeah.
I think that time, if he had also, there was some medication that time, but he probably didn't take it, and then by the time he realized, it was too late, and he passed. So him and his wife, but the kids are big now, like they're 28 years old,
Yeah.
HIV negative. But it was that myth around it, and the stigma around it, like people did not want to disclose or even. But eventually I think people started picking up on it because of the symptoms, like people growing thin and
Yeah.
thinner. But now people can live really, like you won't even know. People are chubby and healthy, and
True.
like,
True.
and you can't tell. So it's like the opposite of that time where people who had it grew so thin, but now people can have it, but they're taking their medications. I think it's all about taking your medication,
True.
and eating healthy, and sticking with your vitamins. Josephine here says, also one more query. I notice people with a positive attitude, mindset live a longer, healthier life. What is the science behind that? Good job, Doreen and Brenda.
It's actually not a science. I think it's just what you're giving to the universe, so it's giving you back. Because as long as you're taking a treatment, and as long as you're basically you've accepted yourself, you live longer, because you're not letting HIV limit you or define you. And that is one of the things that a lot of people do, because if you don't accept your HIV status, it's going to be brutal on you. That is why people say that they're going to die. But ideally, they're not going to die because of HIV. They're dying because they're in denial. So some people even say, like, they get into depression, they get into alcoholism, they stop taking their treatment. So you see, with all those factors, living a long life is going to be very hard. So HIV does not kill in 2021. I can say that as a fact.
Yeah.
But if you don't take treatment, of course you will die.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. EBM scholar says, I saw her on social media and learned a lot from her. There are so many things we don't know, and we need this education. You're very
Very
inspirational.
true.
Yeah, thank you, EBM. EBM, we're talking about the Tanzanian herbalist. I know EBM is is a professor. It's one of my great friends. He's Tanzanian, so I wonder if he knows the guy.
Even if he knows Babu Eloliondo, he
Babu
should.
Eloliando.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Africa says, yes, the transplant. Yeah, I wonder if just look at Magic Johnson since
You
early
see?
1990s. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Acceptance is number one, but not accepting, you will not follow steps, and psychologically, you will not survive.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I agree. So, Doreen, what is let me see. So how is it when you're talking, you meet a whole bunch of different people from different
Mm-hmm.
walks of lives.
Yeah.
So what do you hear from like people who are in relationships, like younger, like maybe people in their 20s who have like a girlfriend, boyfriend, and one of them maybe happen to be HIV positive, or even those who are what do you hear from them? Is it hard for them to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend? What is the stigma around that, and how are people coping with that?
You see, even though we are in 2021 and HIV is no longer a killer disease, the
Mm-hmm.
stigma is a killer disease. The stigma
Mm-hmm.
we have about HIV is it's too much. And
Yeah.
people find it so hard to date. Some people even tell me, Doreen, just find a partner who has HIV like me so that I don't have to go through, like, to feel like it is my responsibility. The burden of prevention, the burden of disclosure is on me. And they don't leave me because nobody likes rejection.
No.
HIV positive or not, we do not like rejection.
No.
So the
No.
moment you get rejected because of your status, it even hurts them more because now you are start asking yourself, am I less of a human being? One time, I disclosed to someone, and they were like, "No, you don't have HIV. You're just saying that so that you can cut me off." And I told them, "No, I actually do have HIV." So he told me, "Let's meet, and then the first thing we're going to do is get tested." So we got tested.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my results came back positive. His were negative. And he basically left me somewhere along the road before even reaching town. And so these are the realities of us people living with HIV. By the time you're getting somebody who looks at the human and not the virus, it takes too much time. And
Absolutely.
it's overwhelming so that sometimes people are like, I'd rather just say single or just get another person positive like me. It's going to be easier. But when you say and the sad part is you cannot really tell people that I only want positive people. Sometimes you will attract negative people.
Right.
And sometimes you will like them, but then every time you remember your status, it's now start giving you a lot of anxiety in that relationship because you don't know how you're going to navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work, and a lot of people find it very stigmatizing to be left, to be rejected because of the HIV status. But sadly, it is the reality we are living in. So finding a partner as a person living with HIV is very difficult.
Now, if you found, let's say, a partner, Doreen, who's negative,
Yeah.
what so what would they have to do, like, for them to stay negative in that relationship? Like, are you able, apart from using contraceptives, for example, condoms and things like that,
Mhm.
how are the two people in a relationship able to have sex and not infect the other?
So
What is the
when
new technology?
so okay, if the woman is positive and the man
Yeah.
is negative, so
Mm-hmm.
there is a new technology that has come up.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the dapivirine vaginal ring. It's a ring laced with an ARV called dapivirine, and so
Okay.
it's inserted into the woman and stays there for 28 days and prevents the woman, specifically only the woman, from
Yeah.
getting HIV. So if the woman has a HIV positive partner, they can use the ring for as long as possible. And the ring can also be incorporated with other HIV prevention methods such as the condom and also PrEP. There's
Mm-hmm.
also now the use of PrEP. where if
Yes.
you get, if you're negative, you take PrEP, and your positive partner, of course, takes their ARVs. But because we are people who don't like taking medication because we are sick, we are not
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
The positive partner, when they are taking the medication correctly and consistently, and they reach the level called undetectable viral load, they cannot transmit HIV to the negative partner. So it's called U equals U, which means undetectable equals untransmittable. So if you're undetectable, you cannot transmit.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I see. So, like, how is this information available for most people, let's say in the hospitals? I know, like, back then, I remember, like, most people in Uganda, if you're going to get married, you'd be meant to go for tests, like to make sure. But do we have counselors, like, who are constantly talking about people about, like, yes, you can be positive, you can be negative, and you guys can actually stay healthy in that relationship, and this is what you can use? Is that information available?
The information is available. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like probably the mode of delivery is the one that where the challenge is, because the information is there, but sometimes the people don't really want to accept that HIV has changed. And also, they don't, sometimes how it's brought out, it has brought out myths such as, if you're undetectable, does it mean you're now a HIV carrier? And such kind of questions keep coming up, which means that there is a part of the information that has not really been
Yeah.
correctly communicated. So I think we need to do better in terms of communication when it comes to HIV prevention issues. We need to do a lot of work in terms of ensuring that we are communicating simply, but also ensuring that the message has reached home.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, right. Yeah, I know. This is Africa. You're saying my wife and I got tested. Yes, but you know what happens in Africa? I've had so many stories like this where people actually who do, yeah, the couple goes for testing, and somehow if the other, partner knows somebody in the hospital, they can always
Mhm.
get, like, the negative tests, even though they might be
But
positive.
the problem with testing before marriage nowadays is sex does not even happen in marriage anymore. So that is the problem. People
Yeah,
just meet and just have sex, and then after that they're now like, oh, go and get ARVs. And you see, so that is the problem. The problem, if we were following the right channels,
yeah.
this would be the best way of ending new HIV infections. But sadly, it is not how life is in 2021. People
Mm-hmm.
just meet up. They don't care about the other person's HIV status. And then they later on find out this person is HIV positive, I am HIV negative, or rather, I don't know if I am HIV positive or not. And if such a kind of a scenario happens, there's always the medication used to prevent HIV called PEP,
Mm-hmm.
post-exposure prophylaxis. So you take it 72 hours after a HIV exposure. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes this person you had sex with 2 weeks ago texts you and they're like, I hope you went to the VCT. So 2 weeks later, you can't even do anything. So the sad
Yeah.
part is, now the only thing that we can tell people is embrace prevention.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Prevention.
I would love to tell them to abstain, but they will not listen to that message, because nowadays people do things the way they want to do things. And I
Mm-hmm.
even when I'm doing my social media advocacy and I see somebody make a comment such as like, I can sleep with you without a condom, and I'm like, how many people does this person tell this in real life? And what do they even know the HIV status of this other person? You see, so we
Mm-hmm.
have gotten
Mm-hmm.
used to a culture where we look at each other and we assume the other person is HIV negative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and
Yeah.
even HIV positive people uh always look at the other person and assume this other person is negative. But what if they're also positive and probably not on treatment and they give you a reinfection?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
only way is prevention. And
Mm-hmm.
sadly, it's it's a hard topic to try and because people after a while, even people who start using prevention earlier in their relationships, stop at some point.
They do. They do.
And
They
they
do.
stop without even testing. And I've even seen people who are like, we are going to, what is it called? We are going to test for HIV. So like a man just says, I want us to test for HIV. And they're like, okay, fine, no problem. And then they assume just because you say yes, you don't have HIV. But if you say no, then you are suspicious and you need to get tested. So you see, this kind of dynamics are what really makes the real life situations very hard to prevent HIV. So if everybody just embraced prevention and we said, can we just prevent ourselves? Because you're not doing the prevention for the other person, it's for yourself. Then maybe we will have a better HIV response,
Yeah, I
especially in
think,
Africa. Especially in Africa.
especially in Africa, man, it's just and then you have, I mean, like, the problem is, like, you have also in Africa, you have men who don't believe in using condoms.
Exactly. That is why I'm telling you that the dynamics are very different in real life setting, and that is why the women are now being given the dapivirine ring, and I feel like every woman who does not have HIV needs that ring, because we have sneaky people who even start using a condom and then remove it midway.
And remove it in the middle of the game.
Exactly. And you see, it is a crime, yes, but there is no law specifically in African countries that actually criminalize it. So you can't do anything. So it's a very gray area. I can tell you that HIV is a very gray area. As in, there is black and white, but then in real life setting, there's so many gray areas that even if you try to tell people, please use prevention, they will still come back 90 days later and tell you, oh my God, Doreen, I just got tested. I am negative. Now I believe what you always tell us. And I'm like, but you did not have to live through the anxiety for 90 days if you would have used prevention the first time. So that is how life is. Yeah.
That's how life is. Liz is asking, so does Doreen still get stigmatized? Do you still run into, stigmatization in your daily life?
Of course. Living with HIV is living with HIV. The stigma is part of the package. So of course, it's not as much now, but still there are people who you will wake up and, like, today morning I woke up and found a comment on my Facebook page, people saying somebody just typed rest in peace. And I'm like, yeah, so the stigma is still there. And as I told you, stigma might never end because it's a mentality. There are people who look at me and they're like,
people's mentality. Yes,
exactly. So you can't change, but at least there are people who will look at HIV from a perspective where it's a health condition. We can live with it, and I think we can work with that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Doreen, I know we've been here for a while, and I know you've had a busy day. I know you had so many things happening. It's late for you, so let me let you go. But thank you again so much for staying vocal and talking about this publicly. It means a lot, and it's very helpful. It's helpful, and I know it will inspire other people and also motivate other people to live a healthy life, even when they're HIV positive.
Yeah.
Sorry, my kids decided that was like the best time to yell at each other.
Okay, no problem.
But thank you so much, and I appreciate. So, what is the last remark you'd want to say to anybody out there, mostly the youth, or even 20s? I call people in their 20s, their 30s, the youth, the younger generation. What would you like to say to them if, let's say, one finds they've tested HIV positive? What would you want to say to them to being positive?
So I would like to tell them, if you are HIV negative, please stay negative. HIV is preventable. There are so many prevention methods, and you can always use them. So stay negative at all costs. It's not an easy life living with HIV for the rest of your life. If you're HIV positive, you just got diagnosed and you feel like it's one overwhelming revelation, it is. And it's difficult, and I understand that, but don't give power to a tiny virus that cannot speak. You're greater than HIV, And remember that acceptance is an everyday journey. So don't give yourself pressure to accept, to disclose to people, to start treatment. Do it when you are ready, because this is a lifelong journey. This is a lifelong commitment, but you are going to be fine.
Wow, that is very powerful, Doreen. That is very powerful. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody who joined us today. Thank you. Thank you. I see all of you in the comments section. I appreciate you being with us, all your questions, all your, like positive vibes to Doreen. Let's keep praying for you, Doreen, so that you can keep being motivated and encouraged to encourage others. It's not an easy road. But we need to see you stay healthy. So please, as you travel, as you do all these things, make sure you take care of yourself. Eat healthy. You kind of like know your drill now. So do what you know you have to do, because we need more people like you to keep coming up or host you again. I know I'm going to get so many questions, but it would be so great. I hope you get to travel to different countries and talk to different, maybe even in schools, talk to the youth, talk to students, like different ways they can prevent themselves, because for sure, even though we have hospitals, we need younger people to talk about these things. And it's the younger generation that needs more help, I believe. We need more awareness, and awareness in a way that, okay, so what if you're positive now? It's not the end of your life. And also, hey, you need awareness in a way that you're negative. This is how you can stay negative, and this is why you need to stay negative, because hey, I'm positive, and I can tell you living the way I am is not a great choice.
Exactly.
So things like that. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your night. Take care and stay blessed. And thank you everybody who joined us.
Thank you so much, and bye bye.
Bye, Doreen. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Thank you so much. I appreciate Antigone Cherry. I see you stayed now, Doreen. As much as one is married, you never know. So how does one deal with that? Oh, sorry, I forget. She left before she answered this question. It seems like one would never trust anyone at one point. I will really get married in worried in the marriage life. So I mean, let's all just do what we have to do. Stay faithful. For those of you who are in relationships, who are in marriages, staying faithful, I think, is one of the best ways, especially if you've already known your statuses, your negative, both of you. So staying faithful is one of the ways you guys can prevent any of you couples getting infected with HIV, for example. We mostly know it comes from, sexual intercourse. Some people who were born with it had no choice because maybe their parents had the virus, or maybe they actually got it like in hospitals. Some babies get HIV when they're being born, because of like how maybe the blood transfusion from the parents and them and the baby and the parents. There's like a whole science about this. So, but read and educate yourself, and also if you have any people who are living with HIV and AIDS, be that great support system for them. Like Doreen said, most of them who are positive don't appreciate you always like saying, how are you feeling, how are you doing, because that reminds them that they're not normal, like there's something wrong with their life. So, but support them in a way that you see. You can always ask them as well, how do you want us to support you? How would you like me to support you? They will be able to tell you. But above all, just stay positive for them, pray for them, and encourage them when you can. See you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sundays. Some of you who are watching, it might be late, your side of the world. My American buddies, have a great afternoon and take care. Stay blessed. Bye bye.